Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever it is that you are watching us. My name is Masi Masila Chola, and I want to welcome you to the Leadership Garage podcast series. Today, it's another exciting episode, and I'm so excited, actually thrilled to be joined by one very good friend of mine. I know him from very many hats, and I'm going to try and share all of them to you so that you know why I am excited. His name is Oltesh Thobias, and I first met him as a fellow Rotarian. So he is a Rotarian. We serve together in the Rotary Club of Nairobi East. But additionally to that, Oltesh is also a certified Maxwell Leadership team member. And we connected in that space, and he inspired me in more ways that I can even share with you. He is so passionate about speaking, communication, because leaders are created to communicate and in what they do. I know he's also a father and to three beautiful daughters. He's married to one wife, and he also has a day job where he's really helping to turn around this continent of ours from in Africa, and he's doing a lot of things in that space. But today, he's here to talk to us about what it means to be a speaker, a communicator in the leadership garage analogy that you all by now, I'm sure you know. If it's your first time, I want to welcome you because we speak on leadership matters and we try and connect this in the same way that we take our cars to be improved on their performance in a garage. So this is the leadership garage. And so help me welcome my friend, Oltesh Tobias. How are you? Is it good morning or good afternoon where you are?
It is still good morning. It's actually a few minutes past 11. I'm based in South Africa, Pretoria. So we are 1 hour behind you, Mercy. And let me say that I'm super good and I'm getting better.
Yes, I know that. You say, how are you? And you say you're super good and you're getting better. And I love that statement, Altesh, because, as leaders, we are supposed to be getting better, becoming a better version of who we were yesterday. And so I always love that greeting. So, Altesh, we want to hear from you. What do you have prepared for us today?
Mercy, it depends because I'm like a chef in the kitchen and there is so much that you can sample out in my kitchen. And I'm putting the analogy of a kitchen because I'm actually in a journey. I want to spend a bit of more time in the kitchen. Cook, I'm sampling out, I'm trying new recipes. And when I get it right, I just enjoy. But besides that, communication is what I do. I do it day in, day out. I'm always trying new things as far as communication is concerned. I'm trying to communicate with my daughters. I read a book a few years ago, which is titled How to Communicate So That Your Children Can Listen, and vice versa. So, communication is what I would like to talk about today because that is really what can make and break a relationship. It can make and break a business. It can make and break cooperation between countries.
Mhm. I like what you have said, Altesh, there about communicating so that the other person is able to listen and also communicate back to you. And the reason I highlight this is because from days when you and I were growing up, and in some of the cultures that we know, many a times we were told that our role was to be seen and not to be heard. And yet here you are, you're telling us. Maybe you could even start by sharing with our audience. How old are your daughters that you're even keen on making sure that you're communicating so that they listen and they communicate back to you, Altesh?
Thank you. I have been blessed with three daughters, 21, 18, and 9 years.
Mm.
And there's something interesting. You probably might have noticed the gap between 18 and 9 years, which is 10 years. And my older daughters were once complaining that, Dad, I think you're treating our younger sister a little bit differently. And I said, yes, because as a parent, I'm learning, and I'm learning to communicate. And therefore, they even noticed that how I communicate with their younger sister is completely different from how I used to communicate with them at the same age. It is because in between, I joined Toastmasters. In between, I joined John Maxwell. In between, I joined Rotary. And therefore, my communication skills have completely been taken to a different level comparing to when they were 10 years.
Mhm. Well, that is awesome to see the growth, the journey, to hear about the journey of improvement that you have been on. So coming on to leadership and communication, what are some tips you would want to share with our audience in terms of how they can harness their own communication skills and make them better? Not necessarily to be in a Toastmasters or that kind of a speaking engagement, but basically because we are surrounded by people every day, so that we can be practical, better communicators in the spaces that we are in. What tips would you share with us?
That's an interesting question, Mercy. And I would say the first thing that I've learned when I started this journey, and I'm happy that you actually said, okay, let's just put those masters aside. Let us even put John Maxwell, aside. Let us just engage in a normal day-to-day conversation.
Yes.
When it comes to communication, I think number one rule that we really need to observe is listening. Listening.
Absolutely.
It's not even about us really talking or communicating with someone. It is about listening to understand what is the other person telling me. What are they trying to say? Now, when you talk about listening, it could be a written communication. It could be a spoken communication. It could also be a non-verbal communication. For example, when someone says, yes, and someone says, yes, you could probably tell the difference, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's true.
non-verbal communication. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
One is more
listening is really
excited, the other one is bored.
is both ish saying yes, but I'm not really sure. I'm not with you. I'm just saying yes because maybe you're holding my paycheck.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So listening is one thing, and I would suggest and recommend that when someone speaks to us, let us listen with an open mind. And I'm saying an open mind because what I've noticed is if someone communicates to you, we normally tend to refer to our relationship with them, maybe the previous experiences we had with them. They could be good or bad. If you had a good experience with someone, you tend to have an open mind. If you had a conflict with someone, whatever email they're going to send to you, if they would call you, the first thing is you start putting yourself on a defense mode, getting ready for a fight. But maybe they're going to deliver good news to you. So listening and listening with an open mind is number one. Number two is connecting, meaning speaking with an individual, talking to someone from where they are, not from where we are. And as a parent, this is one thing that I've learned, and I'm trying to learn, that can I speak to my 9-year-old daughter from where she is and not from where I am? And there's a book that John Maxwell wrote. Everyone communicates, but few connect. It's a very interesting reading because it talks about several ways, several things that we need to do to be able to connect with an individual and not necessarily to communicate. Because when we connect, that means there's a two-way traffic on the conversation that is happening. And therefore, the other party will listen to us. We would also be listened to them. And the beauty about connecting is it would allow us to influence, it would allow us to motivate, to inspire the other party to take action on whatever it is that we want them to do. So that is number two. But then the last one is really to be able to click. I wrote a book, I read a book a few years on how to click with people. Meaning, now given that we have listened to them, given that we have communicated, and there's that, conversation that is going on. Absolutely. But are we clicking? And when I talk about clicking, I'm talking about, are we identifying from that conversation? Are we identifying some areas that this particular individual is interested? For example, I read this book from Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends, How to Influence People and Win Friends. And one thing that Dale said in that book is, if you, for example, engage in a conversation with someone who likes football, maybe the best thing you can do is to find out what they like and read a little bit about football, so that when you're now engaging with this person, you're not only connecting with them, you're only clicking with them. I would say these are the three major cornerstones of an effective communication.
I love that, Oltesh. Listening, and not only listening, but listening to understand, and listening with an open mind. It's very interesting that you cite that, because one of our recent guest speakers, some few episodes back, for regular audience, they will connect with this. We had Tim Novak, who is one of the faculty members in the Maxwell leadership team, also talking about the importance of listening. And typically, I tell my audience, I tell my clients that when you hear something being repeated over and over again, disclaimer, I did not share this with Oltesh. She has come with it. This is very unscripted content, but he knows as a leader, as a communicator, that listening to connect is important. Tim Novak talked about it, and here we are again discussing about it. So if it's been repeated to you, know that it is important, and it is a critical component in order to keep your leadership performance and momentum moving forward. Secondly, Oltesh has talked about the importance of connecting. And you connect because you want to be influential, whether the person is young, older than you, whether they are your peer, whether they report directly to you. When you connect to them, you're able to influence them. And thirdly, Oltesh has said, we need to click. And the click comes about because then you will see some action happening. You move them to a place of maybe even doing something. Whether you're a parent, your child then responds in a certain way that you are desiring to see them move into. So I like those three steps: listen, connecting, and clicking. So Oltesh, as we normally do with a lot of our guest speakers, we want to now be able to connect the dots of what you have shared with us with what it means in terms of a car's performance. And the first question I will ask you is, what is your favorite car model and why, Oltesh?
A VW Beetle.
Mm-hmm.
And probably this car is no longer in the market. You have the new model,
Does
but
it still exist?
I'm talking about the old school VW Beetles.
Uh-huh. Why is that? Why is this your favorite car? It's probably a vintage now.
Yes, there are several reasons. And The reason number one is growing up in the village in Arusha, Tanzania. We lived, our house was located a bit, maybe I would say 50 meters from, a small, I would say, road, right? And there were a few cars that used to pass, through that route. And one of them was a VW. In fact, there were two VW Beetles. One belonged to a gentleman called Shari Shoy, and another one belonged to a gentleman called Emmanuel. I even know their names. And Emmanuel had a wife, so sometimes Emmanuel would drive, sometimes the wife would drive. And from our backyard or from playground, when Emmanuel passes, we knew, because we knew the voice or the sound of his car. Likewise, when Shari Shoy passed, we would also tell that, this is Shari Shoy's car. And so that was the car that really kind of hit my mind the first time. And I just grew to like it. And when I got employed, guess what? My first car was a VW
Beetle.
And by coincidence, my wife also, and I met her maybe about 15, 20 years later, also had a VW Beetle as her first car.
Okay, I like the fact that you said the sound of the car, you knew whose car it was. And because our mentor, John Maxwell, does say that every person, every leader has a message. And the same way that that car has a sound, and the Beetle has its sound, and we know if it's another vehicle, we can know and tell that's a sound, even from far away, without necessarily seeing it. And so similarly, would you say, Oltesh, do we as leaders, do we have the same message? Or do we have different messages, just like those cars have different sounds?
Absolutely. Let me respond to this question in two different ways. I'll come to the sound a bit later. But I want, because now we're trying to engage with the audience that keep watching this podcast.
Yes.
The VW Beetle taught me 3 lessons, but maybe I'll just talk about one for the sake of time. And then I'll come to the sound.
Share the 3. You can share the 3. We're happy. We have time for you to share the 3.
Right. Now, the VW Beetle that I bought, in 1993 is not the VW Beetle that probably a lot of people would buy. Because when I saw this car for the first time, it was not mobile. In fact, it was perched on stones like my grandmother's cooking pot.
Okay.
So I went there. I liked the car. There was no test drive because it was not possible. So the first thing is, when I paid the money, I got the car towed into the garage. And then it took a few weeks to have it fixed. When it was fixed, I picked the car and I hit the road. And mercy, I felt good.
I can imagine.
I had my favorite car, and my status has changed from a public transport commuter. And our public transport, right?
Yes,
some of our
yes, I do.
It's a challenge. Absolutely. So my status has changed from a public transport commuter to a motorist.
To a car owner.
I enjoyed that car. Remember, I would even change my CV just to say I'm a car owner.
Car owner.
So I hit the road week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. But remember, Mercy, some of the things you don't see. When you're really excited about something, you don't see the weaknesses. But after 1 month, I realized that I'm going back to the garage to have the car fixed than spending my time on the road.
Yes. And
as I look back to this day, the VW Beetle taught me 3 lessons from 3 incidences. The first one, what happened when I was cruising the streets of Dar es Salaam, and I think it was about 8 a.m. in the morning, heading to the office. The car just stopped. And people were honking, move your car, move your car. So I get out, and then with help, I pulled it on the roadside, and I'm like, what is the problem? It must be fuel, because my fuel gauge was not working.
You forgot to fuel your car. That's what I was thinking, but you said it.
So I pick a jerry can, dash to the filling station, come back, panting like a stray dog with 5 liters of fuel. Open, and I fill 1 liter, 2 liters, 3 liters. And then I realized that the fuel was actually overflowing. So I did not realize, and I did know that the tank was actually full. But because I did not have a fuel gauge, there was no way I could tell that the problem was fuel. So that was lesson number 1, that as a leader, you actually need to identify, maybe carry out an assessment before dashing to a filling station, spending time, spending money, spending your energy with an intention to solve a problem that did not exist.
So the problem was not fuel.
The problem was not fuel. It was a completely different problem. The VW was full of surprises. The second incident happened, again, it was on a Saturday, when I was cruising along the shores of Dar es Salaam. The sun was shining, that Dar es Salaam wind was blowing, the sky was blue, and my girlfriend was sitting right next to me, sipping ice-cold Coca-Cola. And there was reggae music. I used to love reggae playing on the background. And Messi, at that time, I thought, what else could a young man like me need in life?
In life.
A VW Beetle, a girlfriend, good music.
Yeah. Nice ambience with a great view of the beach.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the wind, the Dar es Salaam wind, that warm wind was just massaging on my face and blowing my face. I was home and dry. But then the next surprise happens. That blue sky changes into gray, dark gray, pitch black. And the rain starts dropping. It rained cats and dogs. And when I turned my wipers, you can already guess they were not working.
They were not working.
The wipers were not working. So I had to pull over because I could hardly see 3 meters ahead of me. So my girlfriend and I sat in solemn silence, waiting for the rain to stop.
Rain. Lesson number 2.
That was lesson number 2, that you've got to fix a problem before it fixes you. The story did not end there, Mercy. The last incident happened when I was on a different road, cruising about 80 kilometers per hour. And I don't know, maybe some people have not driven Beetles. We all know that the engine is at the back, right?
Yes, I was about to ask that, but yeah, carry on with the story.
This noise, like it was smoke. So I jumped out of the car, pulled over, jumped out of the car, and the engine was on fire.
Fire.
Mercy, did I say fire?
Yes, you did.
The engine was on fire. And you probably have already guessed that I did not have a fire extinguisher.
No.
So what do I do? You know, our roads in Africa, yes,
Yes.
you know, some of them are dusty and everything, but that's the day when I saw the benefit of the dust.
You're able to get the soil.
Absolutely. I made use of dust. So I got the dust and then I started spraying it on the engine. Finally, fortunately, the fire was out. And my vehicle and my few possessions in the car were saved. That was my lesson 3. That as a leader, don't wait for the burnout to burn you down.
Wow, wow, wow. Oltesh, those are such powerful nuggets and lessons right there. Lesson number 1, that you need to understand the problem first before you go trying to fix problems that do not exist. I've heard you say that lesson number 2 was you needing, as a leader, because sometimes I'm sure you knew your wipers were not working that day.
Absolutely.
Because you had such wonderful weather, you were enjoying that beautiful sunshine, you did not anticipate the rain to come. And so there you got your second lesson, which you're sharing with us, which is fix the problem before the problem fixes you. Because now when you needed to move and it was raining, I hope your girlfriend was able to meet you again after that, because I wouldn't be happy if you kept me in the car because you did not have wipers. And then lesson number 3, which is about encouraging us as leaders to find time, rest, relaxation, so that we do not burn out. Because if you burn out, then you have no use first to yourself or even to the people that you're supposed to be leading or serving. Such powerful nuggets, Oltesh, right there with the Beetle. And you know, the last one that you say, the engine at the back, as I grew up, we used to have a saying that the VW Beetle was about saving, you know, it says, kill the driver, save the engine. Because in the event of a head-on accident, it was likely that the driver would die and the engine would be spared. So that's why they had that saying as we grew up. But I'm glad to hear that in your case, you saved your engine and stopped your car from burning down. So Oltesh, I would like to ask you, as I thank you for spending time with us, what are some parting shots that you'd give to us even as we wind down on this podcast for today?
I would say that as a leader, there is so much that we're communicating to those who are looking up to us, to our peers, the same level, but also even to those who are leading us. There is so much that we are communicating without saying a word. I mentor young people, and I'm very fortunate that my mentorship journey started in Kenya. And I had this young man going to Dedan Kimathi University, visiting me as one of my mentees. And he said, Oltesh, you don't even need to talk to me. I just want to watch you, see how you carry yourself, what you do in the office, what you do during the day. And he was just shadowing me. Jamlink is his name. He was shadowing me. He came to the office at 8 o'clock. He just sat on the corner, watching me speaking on the phone, working on my computer, doing meetings. In the afternoon, we went to the Rotary Club of Nairobi East. Probably you were at that meeting. In the evening, we went home, we had dinner, and then, you know, he went home and he said, that's the only thing I needed. So as leaders, There is so much that we are saying without opening our mouth. What is it that we're doing? Are we walking the talk? How are we communicating? How are we engaging with others? Especially, and this is probably a big challenge to those that are maybe in low paid positions, to those that cannot really say no to you. And that would also include our children, because we have full authority on them, and probably we can determine their fate. What message are we communicating?
True.
So that is really important. I was talking to one of my teenage daughters, second born, and she always asked questions. Daddy, at your age, at my age, what were you doing? And when she meets her uncles, she's always asking, what did daddy do regarding 1, 2, 3? Because she wanted to know. She's just trying to relate. And we had a conversation a few days ago, and she said, but daddy, sometimes you also show up late, because she was late for an appointment. And I said, but Alicia, you can't do that. And she said, yes, but daddy, I got that from you. And I said, that's absolutely true. But if you got that from me, that is not a good quality. That is not a good character to pick from me. So I would say that how we conduct ourselves is really, really important. And this is why, as I listen to the sound of the beetle, one, it influenced me to end up buying a beetle. Number two, the sound of the beetle of Mr. Emmanuel Zensharishwika was actually communicating to us. The beetle was not aware. Emmanuel was not aware that we were picking that communication. And the beetle was completely not aware that it is influencing a young man to end up buying a beetle. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Oltesh. I truly, truly appreciate you. I am honored to have you as a friend and to glean from your wisdom and to be able to even bring it and share it with our audience. There you have it. We have come to the end of our episode today with our guest, Oltesh Thobias, linking communication on how we can use it to perform and improve our productivity as leaders. And I encourage you not just to listen to it on your own, make sure you share with somebody else so that they too can learn and grow from these conversations that we're having together. My name is Masi Masila Chola, your host. I am the founder of Value Connect and also an executive program leader with the Maxwell Leadership Team. For now, we say bye-bye and see you at the next episode. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.